Well, joining me today in studio is Alec Calderwood, and I've already told you this morning that Alec had served 11 years for murder, and Alec is now out of prison and is planning to open a drop-in centre on the Shankill Road. Alec also is now a committed Christian. And good morning and welcome to Downtown Radio, Alec.
Good morning, Lynda.
Thanks for coming along to join me today. I know I got to hear of your story, mainly through a newspaper report the other day, and the fact that you're planning to set up or hoping to set up this drop-in centre. I want to go back a wee bit though, because that's a long way down the line for you from whence you've come, if you want to put it that way. You were a young man who, in your own words, hated Catholics. How did...
Well, that's correct, Lynda. The problem was I was born in Brown Square, which is at the very bottom of the Shankill Road. And when I was 9 years of age, I was the British Army's mascot in a place called Brown Square Barracks. And during that period, in 1971, there was 3 Scots soldiers murdered, and their bodies were found at a place called Laganil. Well, I actually travelled over to Scotland for the funeral of the 3 Scots soldiers. And when I came home again, growing up as a young fella in the Shankill, the troubles had begun, obviously, and people were being murdered. People from your own community, security forces, and so on. And when this incident happened, I started to grow up through this here, and I began asking questions. And I asked the question, who killed the 3 Scots soldiers? Well, at that particular time, I was told it was the IRA. And I says, well, who's the IRA? It's the Fenians or the Taigs, or the Roman Catholics. So from a very, very early age, you know, society, in a sense, and my surroundings played a part in the way that I was going to think in the years to come.
Did you ever as a child mix with Roman Catholics? Did you ever meet a Roman Catholic?
Well, unfortunately, the first time that I basically came into contact with them from associating with them in a point of view was when I was 14 years of age.
Is this the famous trip to Holland?
That was the trip to Holland, and you know what happened there.
Well, would you mind repeating what happened there?
Well, when we arrived in the airport, it was one of the Catholic fellas gave me a look that I didn't appreciate, and unfortunately I had a fight with him and threw him down the stairs in the airport. We then travelled over to Holland, and within 2 days I had a fight again with the person who I was staying with, simply because he was a Roman Catholic.
Did you fight over religion? Did you fight over did you not just like him as a person?
At that particular time, I think the way of thinking was there's prods and there's tags, and you're not going to, it's tunnel vision. You don't want to look to the left and you don't want to look to the right. So at that particular time, it was just as straightforward as that. Mm-hmm. And basically, I actually got locked up for 2 weeks, the remainder of the holiday. They put me in the mental hospital. And that was the leaders took that decision to do that. They thought that was the best decision. Mm. It was a traumatic experience for me as a young fella at 14, being strapped to the bed and given injections and stuff.
That was simply to control you, I would imagine, whilst you were in their care. Me, yep. Right. When you came home, you must have been, I would imagine, a very angry young man.
I was very, very annoyed, and my parents were very annoyed at that time as well. But it was too late to turn back the clock. So basically it was me.
That hatred was in there.
It was there, and there was nothing that was going to take it away at that particular time.
It's a long way from that, however, Alec, to committing murder. And I wonder how did that path take itself? How did you get involved with people who maybe enabled you to want to kill somebody?
Well, basically, when I got till about 16 years of age, and I looked around me and seen that lots of my friends and stuff had joined the junior UDA at that particular time. So, in a sense, I have to be truthful here and say that my life in my early years was lived to please other people, because everybody else was doing it, so I would have done exactly the same thing. And, you know, I made a conscious decision to do what I'd done. I'm not going to try and get away from that. But it was just basically, my life was lived to please other people.
Do you think that other young men who maybe got involved in the UDA or in other organisations got into it that same way because everybody was doing it and you would look like the odd man out if you hadn't?
Well, I really and honestly believe that both people from a nationalist side and people from the Protestant side, that all peoples are sectarian in their thinking. And I'm one who admit that I was sectarian because I hated Catholics. And there's lots and lots of Catholics out there who hate Protestants. There's lots of IRA men down in the H blocks who were sectarian bigots when they went into the H blocks, but they educated themselves and they came out, thinking from a Republican point of view. But all they need to do is admit that they were sectarian towards people from the Shankill, and there's people from the Shankill who were sectarian towards them.
Today, Alec, how do the people of the Shankill look upon you? Because you are saying there is this problem. I want to try and divert young people from the way I went, because there are still Protestants who hate Catholics, Roman Catholics, as you say, and there are Roman Catholics who hate Protestants. How can they come to terms with you wanting to bridge that gap and cross that divide?
You see, sectarianism is a very, very deep-rooted thing, and it's not easy to try and deal with it. But at the end of the day, you've got a person from a nationalist background and a person from a unionist background, or a Protestant and a Catholic. And I think what the problem is in Northern Ireland, that maybe the Protestants are trying to make the Catholics Protestants, and the Catholics are trying to make the Protestants Catholics. This is what the problem is. What we need to do, we need to learn to respect each other. We need to learn, let the Catholic be a Catholic, let the Protestant be a Protestant, and let us learn to accommodate each other, and let us learn to live together. And I think that's the only way forward, because if you believe something 100% in your heart, you don't want anybody to take anything away from you.
I can hear, all over Northern Ireland people saying that's exactly right. What he is saying is true. We must accommodate each other, and we must look at each other and respect each other's traditions. But then there will be those who will say, well, that's a bit rich coming from somebody who has done what he has done and who is now supposedly a committed Christian. They'll say, that's how many people have gone into prison, done time, have seen the light, have seen the Lord and come out again. I think they're sceptical. There are people who are sceptical.
Well, you see, again, if I'm going to be a committed Christian, then I'm going to let them people think like that. Because if that's the way that they want to think, well, then that's okay. I know from my own personal experience, my Christian life has been a struggle from I have come out of prison. But there's people in prison and there's people out of prison that turn around and says to me, wait till he's out a week. We'll give him a week and he'll be back on the drink and he'll be back to his old way again. But I was out for the week, and then it says, give him a month. When you last a month, then I'll give him 6 months, then give him a year. Well, I've been out 15 months now, and there's only one reason, and one reason only, that I have kept going on the path that I'm on, and that was because God saved me. I didn't save myself. And I sit here today because of the grace of God, because of the mercy that He has shown me.
Do you think God forgives you for what you did?
I believe with all my heart that God forgives me for what I did, and that is why He sent His Son into the world, because the Lord Jesus Christ took my place on the cross.
How do you deal with your thoughts about the victim's family?
Well, it is a very, very touchy subject, and it's a very touchy area. All I can say is that from the bottom of my heart, that I am truly sorry for any hurt that I have caused, and that's all I can say.